Namaskar viewers, hello and welcome to Sansad TV. I am Tina Jha, you're watching Perspective. The Modi government aims to resolve inter-boundary disputes in the northeast and also strike reconciliation with all armed insurgent groups by 2024, asserted Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Thursday. Presiding over a historic tripartite agreement between the centre, Assam government and 8 armed tribal groups of the state, Amit Shah said many agreements have been signed with armed groups since 2014, with 93% of these pacts implemented on the ground. Listing out data, he said the number of insurgency-related incidents in the northeast had decreased from 824 in 2014 to now 158. The number of civilian killings also in the region had declined from 212 in 2014 to just 6, and the number of security forces killed during the same period had also reduced to 2 from 20 earlier. Also, more than 10,000 cadres had surrendered and joined the mainstream after 2014, and more than 7,000 weapons had been surrendered. He reiterated that the centre is making every possible effort to make the whole of the northeast and its largest state, Assam, free from drugs, extremism and controversy. So how is this objective being realized? The steps taken to ensure peace, stability and also development in the northeast, the challenges that still remain and the way ahead. All of these aspects on this edition of Perspective today with 2 distinguished panelists who are joining me on the program. Pleased to welcome Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, retired, his Director, India Foundation, and Mr. Deepak Diwan, Senior Journalist and a Northeast Analyst. Thank you, sir, for joining me on the program today on this very, very important subject, on this important agreement. Mr. Diwan, let me begin the program today with you. You've been covering the Northeast for several decades now. How historic is this tripartite agreement and how significant will it be in ensuring peace, particularly in Assam?
Well, you know, yesterday's accord signed between the Adivasi groups of Assam and the Assam government and the centre is going to usher an era of peace in the, this Adivasi areas who are primarily tea garden labourers. See, in 2016, these people had signed suspension of operations, and after that the talks began. And it's taken little time, but nevertheless, yesterday, with the signing of this accord, it will end another insurgency in Assam. If you remember, 2 years ago, we had signed with Bodos. All the remaining factions of Bodos had come over ground. Today, if you see the Bodo areas, the kind of development you see, it is being done by those who had signed the accord. So themselves, they are developing the area. The same thing is going to happen here. See, the state government and the centre both will churn out 500 crores in the next 5 years. 100 crore every year for next 5 years. Assam government will give the money, and the same amount centre will also take it out. And this money is going to be utilized basically for developing infrastructure in the Adivasi areas. What are the basic infrastructures? Their demands were development of schools, medical facilities and housing. So I think government has done well, and with these outfits, they have surrendered 1,182 total surrenderies are there, and they have come out with 156 arms and 887 ammunitions, and also 21 grenades and 7 IEDs. So naturally, once you get into negotiation with any armed group, the peace automatically comes there. And after signing the accord, you will find the area will flourish, and these people, very same people, will stand up against anybody who raises the
Absolutely.
arm.
I think you're right, because this perhaps is the third big accord that's been signed and which includes so many Adivasi groups. It's development of one group that perhaps is now attracting the other rebel groups also to
and
look
I think
towards development.
more than that, I think these groups have developed what I'll say is confidence in the centre's call, the Prime Minister's call, that the centre wants to solve the
That's an important point, Mr. Diwan, and I'll come back to understand what this government has done that the previous regimes could not do. That's an important aspect. But let me bring in General Katoch into the discussion. What's your perspective, General Katoch? Because, you know, internal security for India has been a huge challenge. I remember the late CDS, General Bipin Rawat, having said that India faces not just twin challenges, but 2.5 challenges. And the half challenge he referred to was internal security. You know, if our northeastern region is disturbed, automatically it impacts the peace of the region, overall internal security of the country at large. With these peace accords, more and more armed rebel groups are, you know, making efforts to integrate themselves into the mainstream. How significant and historical is this step towards addressing the challenge of internal security?
Thank you, Tina. You know, let me put it this way. What is our major threat in the northeast? And that comes from China, as far as the border is concerned. Now, if that is going to be your conventional threat, we need to ensure that the entire area, that means the entire northeastern states, are in a state of peace. Because that threat gets magnified if there is insurgency in these borderline states. Even if it is in a faraway borderline state, the question is that your resources will get utilized to counter those threats. So peace is the greatest dividend. And I think Assam being the biggest state, the start point has to be in Assam.
Yes.
While, of course, it is a process which takes into account all the 8 states of the Northeast, when we talk of the 8 sisters now. But Assam is the biggest. And it was very important to get Assam on the right path. I think the important thing has been the Assam government itself. The previous chief minister and the current chief minister, I think they have taken very great strides towards building in that level of confidence amongst all sections of society in Assam, and they have got the political support from Delhi. Now, this political support, my colleague has very rightly made the statement that they view it as very positively, but the intent very positively. But there's a second aspect to it also, is the political will behind it. And once they realize that, okay, it is a very benign operation, and there is the political will to execute, then the people at the other end also, their tendency to resist goes down. I think this is going to be, it is going to be a huge game changer, because the impact is going to be much beyond the region. I think for all the viewers, I want them to understand one thing. India's Act East policy, when we are looking to Myanmar and on to all the Southeast Asian states, it depends on what happens here. And if it doesn't go right here, then we cannot push this policy further east. So there are so many linkages in between linkages that I think this is an excellent positive step. And now we'll have to wait and see how by 2024 peace can come about. I am very confident of one thing: the interstate border disputes will be resolved. That I have got no doubts. And I think we don't have to wait for 2024. It will happen much before that.
But about the extremism bit and
the challenges will really be there on the extremism
Certainly.
front.
So I'll come back to the challenges bit. But in the meanwhile, let me also welcome Mr. Adil Chaudhary, former Secretary, Internal Security, Ministry of Home. Mr. Chaudhary, thank you for your time. Welcome to Sansad TV. You know, before you joined us on the program, we were talking to Mr. Diwan, senior journalist, and Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, she's Director India Foundation, and they put forth their perspective on how significant this tripartite agreement is. As someone who served in the Northeast region in various capacity over several years, you've also, taken charge of the Northeast region as Special Secretary in the Ministry of Home Affairs. What is your sense? How significant is this agreement, is this peace accord going to be towards ensuring peace, stability, and most importantly, development among the Adivasi groups in the state of Assam?
Thank you, Nina. It is a good initiative, no doubt. And a lot of water has flown down the Brahmaputra since I was handling the Northeast. See, the good news is that most of the armed insurgent groups in the Northeast, which were very, very active at one time, are now, their presence is very limited. Very, very limited. If you talk about Assam, which is the largest area, we have a splinter or alpha group led by Paresh Barua, who's parked himself in Myanmar. He does not have that kind of ground support within Assam. He is active on social media, and the Bodos have already entered into an agreement. So that's all very good. The Mizos is all history. MNF resented long ago. And the only other group which is still active, one of the groups is active, is the NSCN in the Nagaland insurgent groups. See, the problem with the Northeast is that there are so many wheels within wheels. I believe there are about 100 tribes in the Northeast, and there are sub-tribes, and each has its own aspirations. If you reach an agreement with one group, the other splinter group will not be satisfied.
Yes.
So I think it's best left to those who know the Northeast. If you are trying to negotiate with the help of people based in Delhi who have not really understood the ethos in the Northeast. My friendship with the Northeast goes back to my college hostel days, when there was a large number of Assamese students studying and living in my hostel. I found them to be very simple, very sincere. I made friends with them. And then, as luck would have it, when I joined the IPS, I was allotted the Assam cadre, and then posted to Kamrup district as an ASP. And Kamrup, for the first time, I confronted communal rioting between Assamese and Bengalis. Well, this is something new to me entirely, but there was, but then that was also more or less settled. The district Barpeta is a Bengali majority area, which was part of Kamrup district. From there, I was transferred to Karimganj in Kachar district, which is the Bengali majority subdivision. That's another, and bordering Bangladesh. The liberation of Bangladesh threw up its own challenge. And finally, I landed up in Lunglei in Mizoram, the newly carved out union territory out of Assam, where we had Bangladesh on one side, Burma, now Myanmar on the other. And the people in Mizoram, tribals are very simple, very truthful, very sincere.
So, Mr. Chaudhary, do you think it's this approach?
I think there is only a very small...
You raised an important point that, it's best left to the people who understand the ethos, the culture, the problems of these ethnic tribes. Do you think it's this approach that has helped this government gain success in, getting into agreements with several of the tribal groups in the region and towards ensuring larger peace, stability, and most importantly, development across all of these ethnic tribes?
Yes, I think so, because we are fortunate that our premier intelligence agencies is currently being headed by an Assamese who knows the Northeast better than anyone else in Delhi. And also, the Chief Secretary of Assam, who just remitted office, had worked in the Ministry of Home Affairs as a director in the Northeast Division. So I think this makes a lot of difference. I think the problem is more or less resolved. We only have one small splinter group called Kamtapur
Liberation Organization,
Kamrup,
yes.
Group, which is active in parts of Kamrup. It's very 40-50 strong only. And, we have to see the development takes place at a fast pace, and the development benefits flow to the population very, very fast.
Certainly. It's development that had made inroads for this government, that has helped this government, gain rapid success in getting into agreements one after the other, Mr. Diwan. But the fact that, Manipur still remains a disturbed area. And when we talk about making the entire region extremism free, this is going to be a challenge. There are several of these tribes whose demands are not feasible to be met. So help us understand how difficult is it going to be for the government in just about 2 years to make the region insurgency free?
One thing I would like to share with you. See, there are 25 outfits in Kuki areas. 17 outfits are under the umbrella of KNO, Kuki National Organization, and 8 are under UPF, that is the umbrella organization. They are right now in the talks with center. In fact, tripartite talks, but mainly they are dealing with the center at the moment. I would like to share with you this information. They had signed suspension of operations with the armed forces in 2005. till 2008, Manipur government, which was led by Mr. Ibobi Singh, refused to acknowledge that. They said, what SO, with whom, this and that, this kind of language was used. But I think on behalf of center, their representative was sent there. They made them sign the tripartite agreement in 2008. Manipur government signed unwillingly. And you will be surprised, for 8 years, nothing happened. Only in 2016, when the center government changed, we had BJP government, under Modi government, then the new policy was announced that we want to have negotiations with everyone who wants to give up arms. The process started. And imagine 25 groups now are on the negotiation table with the center. And they are at a stage where they are see, negotiation takes time. But I think sooner or later, they will be signing the agreement.
You know, the optimism that the Home Minister expressed yesterday while saying that by 24 we are going to make the region extremism free, which means all of these groups which have yet not got into agreements with the government, they are in talks, they are reaching out.
In fact, recently, last month only, Meghalaya government had received a letter from HNLC. It's an outfit which has a Khasi name, difficult to pronounce, that they want to come forward for negotiation in the settlement in the Indian Constitution. The Chief Minister, Conrad Sangma, took the initiative. We flew down to Delhi with the letter from them and took centre's approval, Home Minister's approval, and help was taken of Mr. A.K. Mishra, who's the negotiator for Nagas as well as Cookies and Alpha. He also went to Meghalaya and they appointed a local interlocutor because the language is a problem. So the process has started. Meghalaya government has given free, safe passage to 5 HNLC leaders, those who have come from across the border from Bangladesh. They are right now in Shillong and the talks have started. So I think the state governments also have to come forward to accommodate these people.
That is what we are witnessing, General Katoj, change dynamics in the northeastern region, the manner in which the BJP is, taking newer initiatives towards inclusive development in the region, including all of these ethnic tribes who have been neglected for long, and political will that you mentioned is most importantly. Give us a sense, because infiltration, insurgency is something that we do not just face in the northeast. It's also in the northern frontiers. How different is insurgency and infiltration in the northeast vis-a-vis something that we witness in Jammu and Kashmir? Is it also, backed by some foreign elements?
You see, when we are looking at the northeast, when we look into the 60s and the 70s, that was the time when there was very active Chinese involvement. Over the years, that has dissipated. Today, when you look at the situation, there is no support which the Indian insurgent groups get from Myanmar. But having said that, the government of Myanmar and their security forces do not have the capacity actually to evict anybody from there. So if there is some insurgent group operating inside Myanmar, it is not a lack of political decision making from the government of Myanmar. They just don't have the capacity to deal with it. So there will be some of these elements who will be across the border, but India can handle that. I don't think there is a problem as far as movement of insurgent groups from Myanmar into India and all is concerned. It is a very small scale groups which can move in, and we can handle that. I think the larger problem of insurgency is really between two states. It is internal as to how are you going to resolve the interstate differences between the Manipur insurgent groups, the Manipur insurgent groups, and the Naga groups. Because the Naga groups are claiming parts of Manipur. The hill areas they wanted as part of a greater Naga limb, and Manipur is not going to give that. That is out. And if it'll become very serious if any sort of geographical boundaries are changed. So how will the center actually move into getting onto a reconciliation without changing geographical boundaries? That is going to be the challenge, but I'm sure that challenge can be addressed.
Absolutely. Mr. Chaudhary, since we're talking about the concerns and the challenges, what are some of the problems that you see in the assimilation of the people, especially of the ethnic tribes in the northeast, into the mainstream? What are the kind of problems that they still face?
May I make just 3 points? One is when you're talking of Manipur, you see Manipur is Meiteis, the plains people, and there is a dichotomy between the plains people and the hill tribal, as rightly pointed out. See that also, mainly it's Nagas, some Kukis who have been rehabilitated, sent back home. I'm very optimistic. And the offer of the Honorable Home Minister that we are willing to talk to every group. It's not only limited to one group, every group. And I think it's quite easily it will be achieved. The other problem, which as I see, is assimilation of people from Northeast into the mainstream. There are a very large number of Northeastern young people working in New Delhi, and unfortunately they are being looked upon as not Indians because of their features, and there have been some cases where they have been attacked. This is something we have to welcome them, we have to help them assimilate with the mainstream India. That is another challenge as I see it, but these small groups like they named something in in Mars and others, they all dwindled. I think that it is now much better if development is paced so that the benefit flows to the locals, and if they are assimilated, if they are welcomed in the mainstream of India to take part in the development activities and the economic development in the rest of the country.
Absolutely. That assurance has to go that the government means no harm.
The battle is more or less won, and we are on the right track. I'm quite optimistic. Whether it's 2024, yes, it should be possible.
Okay.
If we guide this initiative in the right direction by those people who understand the ethos of the northeastern tribals.
Certainly. Okay, Mr. Diwan. So, Mr. Chaudhary says we are on the right track and we can see some amount of progress having been made. But at the same time, there are challenges that remain.
Of course.
So, what should be the way ahead?
The way ahead is this only: those who are willing to talk, we should welcome them with open arms. And we should try and solve their problems as quickly as possible, because so that other groups also gain confidence in the process.
And what about those whose demands are not feasible to be met?
Well, see, the thing is, the Meitei groups, as he mentioned, the valley people in Manipur, they are yet to respond to the call given by Manipur CM several times that come for negotiation. They have not responded so far. But those who have responded, like cookies, I mentioned, now we have wasted so many years because of the political unwillingness of the state government that time. But now the talks are on the right track, and I tell you, the talks with Alpha Pro Talks group is also on advanced stage. You can expect another accord with the Alpha Pro Talks group anytime, any month, the coming month.
So that's something great to hear, and we hope that, as the Home Minister...
And the same will happen with the cookie groups like KNO and UPF.
Certainly.
They are on the very advanced stage of negotiation.
Absolutely. So we've seen several agreements since 2014, and as you know, the optimism expressed by the Home Minister that in the next 2 years, perhaps less than 2 years, the entire Northeast region should be free of insurgency, should be extremism free, and most importantly, development should flow among all tribes of the people, including them into the mainstream, and their economic upliftment, their inclusion into the political and educational systems, something that they've been all yearning for several decades. So that's the most important aspect on which the government has been working. And as all our panelists suggested, that perhaps this is the reason, this is the approach because of which the current government has been able to gain some kind of progress with these rebel groups who had picked up arms because of certain demands which were not met over years, and now they've begun to trust the government. So if we are on the right track, the progress is being made, and we're hopeful that all these objectives that have been outlined by the government will soon be met. So that having been said, I'll have to wind up the program. I'd once again like to thank all my guests for joining me on this edition of Perspective today and sharing your thoughts with us and our viewers. Absolute pleasure to have all three of you on the program today. So that's it from us on this edition of Perspective today, viewers. Thank you to you as well for your time. I'll see you same time tomorrow now. Until then, you take care of yourselves and keep watching Sansad TV.